What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bronx Attorney Broadcast. Today we have Rilee Harrison on of Maples, Harrison, and Zeaman trial attorneys. They are personal injury attorneys out of Oklahoma. Rilee, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
So I see you on LinkedIn, I see you on Instagram, and you've announced recently that you made a switch and now you're going to be a partner at your new firm. So congratulations. And what has the past couple months been like for you? Because this is pretty much brand new, right?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Just kind of context. I was at a very growing, well-known, and one of the arguably or one of the best personal injury firms in Oklahoma for the last 4.5 years. So the firm grew astronomically while I was there, not just because of me, because of a ton of people and a lot of good things they had going on. But I learned a lot about, how to use data to make decisions in a firm and just learned a ton about, especially the marketing, the intake, that side of the firm, right? So learned a ton. I also learned a lot about litigating while I was there and how to litigate. And so, you know, it was just a situation where there was no issues, no drama. I love everyone over there. I still do. I just started kind of talking to a couple of guys who had a lot of experience and had a lot of success, and just had a really, we're just in a place where they were, you know, not sure what their next moves were going to be, whether they just run solo firms or whether they join with partners. And we all kind of started talking, started seeing it make sense, seeing that all of our strengths were a little bit different. I have kind of that modern law firm business background, plus litigation experience. They're both really strong litigators, and one of them is a true rainmaker as well, with the just knowing everyone in the community and stuff like that. And so, by the time it was kind of all said and done, it felt like a no-brainer for us. We made the decision. So I guess see, today's the 16th, so it's been right at a month since started the new operation. So, anyways, it's been fun. First month has just been kind of, getting to know. There was a few employees already, getting to know them, making a couple of hires on some key things that we think we needed from day one that would really bolster the firm and help with growth. And yeah, so just kind of making those plans and trying to do things now that build out systems and processes that'll work when we have 50 people or 100 people. So
Was law firm ownership and management something that you've been interested in throughout your career, or is it something that developed later on?
yeah, I think that everybody has different career goals and aspirations, and I think that's awesome. I think that's fine, right? There's people that want to own firms, want to have that responsibility, want to have those things, and there's people that want to just be attorneys and do that forever. Both are right. There's no wrong. It's really about what your deal is. And so I've always been in the first group. I've always wanted that. That was one of my goals, was to become a partner someday.
Mm.
And then as I started realizing what I was good at and what lanes I naturally landed in, those lanes were all lanes that are good lanes for owners to be in, right? So the marketing, the intake systems, the processes, all of that type of stuff, the building out relationships, all those types of things were things I was naturally kind of skilled at. And those are all strong ownership. Those I'm a big vision guy. I like to, got big plans, big thoughts for the future. And so with all of that together, yeah, that's always been. But what's cool about it is, and what kind of my vision has been, is that I want to build a place that those people who don't want to be owners, it's a heck of a place for them, because they're
Mhm.
going to be able to make great money, support their family, and most importantly, do great work for clients, which is what a lot of them want to do. And so I think the fact that I understand that, And, and even in initial interviews, that's going to be my thing for someone like, hey, what do you want eventually? Right. Because if you want the ownership thing, this may not be for you, but if you want to have a place that you can have all the resources to be a great lawyer, that you can have a team that's going to help you out, that we're going to support you in any way, shape, or form to do a great job for clients, this is the place for you. So I think understanding that balance of, what you want and what others want is, I think, the key to success, honestly.
When you go to law school, they teach you the law by having you read previous cases and, what is the law that was developed from this case, from this set of facts. You never really learn how to be a lawyer, right? What you do after you sign up your client, what happens when you go to court. And also, you never learn really how to run a business, how to own a law firm, or anything like that, or marketing, all these things that you're talking about. Nobody really teaches you how to do this in school. So, how did you develop this? How did you learn these things?
Yeah. So, oh gosh, we could do our whole we could fill our whole time on this. Um, eh, my kind of quick story, Will,
Mhm.
is that whenever I first started out, um, the firm that I was at was a smaller shop. They had never had an associate before, and so really good lawyer, great brief writer, great litigator, but he I always kind of felt like it was like, all right, here you go and do it, right?
Mhm.
I wasn't someone that was good at like teaching myself things. That's never been really my strength. I'm better if you lay out like, hey, here's our systems, here's our processes, here's what you do.
Mhm.
I do a lot better with that. So I hated being a lawyer for the first 9 months to a year. Like I contemplated quitting. I contemplated
Mhm.
going into sales and just being like, nope, not for me. I'm going to do something else. Um, Instead, I made the decision to give it one more shot. I went and worked at a large personal injury firm in the city, and I knew they had trained a ton of lawyers before. And so I was like, you know what? Like, this could be a good thing. Let me see what happened. And what was awesome is I did learn those systems, those processes. I learned what it could look like to, kind of operate a law firm like a business.
Mhm.
That's when I started realizing those things. Also, one of the deals there is that if I brought a case in, I got a certain percentage of it, right?
Mhm.
And so I remember my first my my first time I got one of those. So a buddy of mine was in a wreck. We talked. It was like, yeah, that looks horrible. The wreck does, and one thing leads to another. We represent him. I was doing workers' comp at that time. I really wasn't even doing car wreck shit. So the car wreck department, they called me about 4 or 5 months later and said, hey, so and so's case settled. And by the way, your cut is, whatever, let's make up a number, $12,000. And I was like,
Right.
$12,000. I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to bring cases in. You know what I mean? Like, this is way better. Like, what? You're telling me this is what can happen? So,
Yeah.
anyways, I started at that time thinking to myself, okay, I've got all of these networks of people that I've became friends with that like me, that trust me, because everything I'd ever done in my life, I think I was like 27 or 28 at the time, everything I'd ever done in my life, I've been super involved in it.
Mhm.
College, law school, everything. I was the president of this, the that, of that. And I was like, you know what? I need to do this in the legal space too. So I started joining the local plaintiff lawyer association for the state. Joined that, started making friends, getting kind of a name for myself. And people started sending me some cases that they didn't want, stuff like this, smaller stuff. And in my mind, I was like, heck yeah, like I'll take smaller stuff. That's money I wouldn't have made. So
Right.
I started getting those cases in, started learning how to handle those cases. And then that started flowing for me. And I was like, you know, I'm an associate attorney, so I can't really go direct to consumer because that would be competing with my firm. So
Mhm.
why would I do that? And that could get me in trouble. So um, if so essentially, I'm like, you know what? Is this something that what should I do on that, right? So I was like, okay, if I'm going to have, if I'm going to have these working in person, or sorry, if I can't go after the direct consumer, I
Mm,
could go direct to my like direct peers, right? Business to business. So why don't I'm meeting these lawyers in person. Why don't I do it on a national scale? How can I do that? Well, I don't have money to go to all these conferences. I don't have, this and that. So I was like, social media.
mm,
So I started like my Twitter. I changed my bar handle or my handle to Bard and Bearded.
mm.
And that's kind of when that whole thing started. And I started just, posting stuff that was real, that was about me, just promise I'd always be authentic, myself, my voice, my sense of humor, and also make sure people knew that I do know what I'm talking about. And so I kind of had different audiences in every social media platform, right? Like Facebook was my friends and family. So I wanted them to know what I was doing. So I was only posting like once a month about my job, my career, stuff like that. And then Twitter at the time, X now, that was more funny stuff, right? And learning more. And it was just really just geared towards, it's not geared towards consumers, it's geared toward other attorneys. And then LinkedIn, I really didn't want to be involved in at first. I really hated it. And I
Mm.
didn't do it. I did it very sparingly for years. Over the last like 6 months, I've started really posting more on it and kind of building that out. And I'm really enjoying it, honestly, because I feel like I can be myself on there as well. And then Instagram, TikTok, I've never really done a whole lot on. My posts from Twitter or X, those go on Instagram a ton,
Mm.
and get shared on those big accounts. So that's how that's kind of been for me. But anyways, so that's sort of my story on that. And then also just was really blessed with the last place I was at, getting, going to a lot of different conferences, masterminds, and just kind of learning. So that's where I've gotten that sort of that business acumen and understanding some of those things. But yeah, I think that the biggest thing is like when you set out a goal, right? You kind of have to set out a huge big goal, right? Like I'm gonna own a firm, I'm gonna be a partner, I'm going to make X money, I'm going to help so many people, right? Without micro goals in the middle to help you get there, right? Like little small goals that you have to hit to get there, you you're never going to get there. So I knew that I needed to have one or two things that I was really, really good at.
Mhm.
And if I had one or two things that I was really, really good at and could bring to the table at a higher level than most people, that would make me potentially valuable as a partner somewhere. And the two things I chose was litigation and case generation. So, which is kind of the marketing, the intake, the business relationships to get those, all that. So, I focused on those two things, and it paid off. It worked out.
I'm curious about how you figured out what kind of in-person networking stuff worked for you because for you and I we're similar in that we're both about 8 or 9 years out of law school. We've been practicing for 7 years. And in the beginning, for me, it was kind of hard to figure out what groups were working and which ones weren't, right? So I'd go places, I'd go to events. Sometimes I'd walk in, I'd talk to one person, I'd be like, I don't think that this is it. And I would just leave, right? And then other ones, I made friends, I fell in with, and now I'm involved in a couple things where I'm seeing regular cases coming in from my involvement, and I'm climbing up into leadership roles in some things, and it's become really beneficial for me, not just in that I enjoy it, but I'm also getting some business from it, and I'm learning a ton from it. So, how did you figure that out?
You know, I really only there. Oklahoma's a smaller market, right? I don't know if you've ever heard of us before. It's not quite New York.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, some people call it, New York's like little brother. So I actually, that's never it's never been called that. So, but anyways, we really have just one major plaintiffs association in Oklahoma. There's not a ton of them. So I
Mhm.
knew that was the one, that was the premier
Right.
one. And it was kind of you got one shot, one opportunity, just a little Eminem reference there, but like, I couldn't go in and mess that up. So they had a mentor mentee program. back in like 2019. And so I signed up for the mentor and mentee program. The guy who I got slated with as my mentor, he was actually slated to be the president that next year.
Oh, wow.
And so I just started becoming really good friends with him, meeting everyone. One thing that I noticed was lacking with the organization, and a lot of that was because of COVID, was there wasn't a lot of meetings going on and stuff in like 2020, obviously, but towards the end of 2020, 2021, things started opening back up again. There had been a lot of stuff, and I was like, our sponsors wanted to meet people, wanted to go to stuff. So I was like, what about if I started hosting some happy hours? So I started hosting some happy hours, giving some people some things to go to and to enjoy and to be at. And that ended up working out really, really well. People really enjoyed them. We started having 25, 40, 50 people showing up at the happy hours. We did them quarterly. I ended up winning Young Lawyer of the Year for the organization. And then that next year in 2022, I believe, 2023, I got asked to be on the board for the first time. And then a year after that, I got asked to be on the executive committee. And I've been helping run events and work with our sponsors ever since. So anyways, it was really a default thing in Oklahoma. But the same thing is like, what I tell people is don't take no for an answer, right? Like if you go in and that first person you talk to wasn't a good fit, okay, talk to the next person, right? And I'm not saying you slide on you on that at all, Will. But I'm saying like, you know what your goal is, you know what you want, and you know that being a part of that organization is part of it. So make it happen. That's one of your micro goals, right? In order to get to this, I need to be on the board for this.
Right.
So that's a really important piece of that puzzle, is getting that thing. So if it is, you have to do it.
So funny enough, I actually have some family from my mom's side who lived in Oklahoma for a while. So I
no
don't know
way.
too much about Oklahoma, but we do have in our house a picture of like a bunch of old guys in like the late 1800s with big long beards when they were in Oklahoma. I don't know if they were doing prospecting or what, but
Yeah.
I'll send it to you. But I mean, my knowledge about Oklahoma isn't too deep. I'm gonna have to come visit.
Yeah, man, I'd love to have you. It's actually really, it's honestly really blown up. Like the city's super cool now. I know I had some friends in New York that last year they were like, it would have been cheaper for us to fly to Oklahoma City, stay in Oklahoma City, and sit courtside for Knicks versus Thunder in OKC than it would have been to go to a game lower level in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
So if the Knicks had made it to the finals, so.
And you also mentioned COVID, which for us happened very early on in our careers, right? I think that I was admitted to practice for like just about a year, and then it was all, work shut down for a while there. And for me, that's kind of when I dove into learning more about the business of law and marketing yourself and things like that. And I was reading a book or something one night early on and talking about marketing, and that's when I changed all my social media handles to Bronx Attorney because I was just going through bored in the middle of the night, looking for something that would be a catchy little handle, and just a funny story about that. But for you, what was that? What was that like for you? Did you shift gears at all, or start thinking differently when that happened?
Yeah, it all kind of just sort of naturally flowed for me. I already kind of had, like, just from doing so much locally and stuff, I already had decent sized followings on my social media. So it just kind of made sense to just naturally let it like start kind of elevating and stuff. But I made the move to the Bard and Bearded handle in, I want to say it was 2020. It would have been that summer of 2020 or that early fall of 2020, something like that. And so I was just, it it kind of came out of a combination of like I started seeing that like I could still have relationships with my friends on Zoom, right? Like my wife and I
Mhm.
were stuck at our house. We weren't going and seeing our friends, but we were doing we were doing a Zoom meeting to hang out like a Friday night, right? Something like that where we still all had dinner together, we played a game together or whatever. And so I was like, okay, like you can have relationships on these things. So that's when it sort of happened for me. I guess I think it was honestly too around that time that I got that first case in. That was kind of a light bulb moment of like, okay, I want to get more cases. And I was like, worst case scenario on this whole thing, I make some friends in other cities. I've got people to visit or give me recommendations when I go there and I travel.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, people trust me. It becomes a brand, and I get some business because of it. And it obviously turned into the latter, which is awesome. But that's sort of the way this whole thing came about. It was just all just kind of a natural thing. It started with Facebook being very friend and family based, and I knew that those posts needed to be this. And then Instagram was also friends and family posts needed to be this, and then Twitter and LinkedIn were not family or friends. It was other lawyers. LinkedIn needed to be funny, or sorry, LinkedIn needed to be serious.
Hmm.
Twitter needed to be funny. That's why I stopped LinkedIn because I didn't like being serious because that's not me.
Yeah.
Um, and then I eventually realized, hey, I can be myself, and I can be myself on LinkedIn, and that's who I'm going to be. And if
Hmm.
people don't like it, it's not serious enough for them. It's not whatever. Then I've still got my corner of LinkedIn that people are going to like me and resonate with me on. So
How did you target kind of other state attorneys, out of state attorneys to make sure that they were thinking about you if something came through in Oklahoma? Because whatever you did, it worked because we had an Oklahoma case come through my firm and people were in our group chat saying, anybody know an attorney in Oklahoma? And I was like, as a matter of fact, I do. And I think I DM'd you on Instagram and you responded right away.
yeah. Yeah. So, it really wasn't like targeting is kind of a bad word. It was really just like I originally on, especially Twitter, because that's just kind of the one that popped off the most, right? Especially on Twitter. It's one of those things where early on I was just, hey, if someone followed me, I followed them back.
Mm.
If someone had a post that I liked at all and they were a lawyer, I followed them, right? And what I eventually I got to like I was following like 3,000 people or something, and I just started getting followers every day without following people, and I was like, okay, I probably need to slow down on following people because like I just don't I don't want too big of like a following because it would just get exhausting on my deal. So I kind of trimmed it a little bit and then just started following people that I really want to follow. But it just sort of started stacking. So it's kind of that whole adage of in a local market, you want to be omnipresent, right? You want to be on billboards, you want to be on TV, you want to be on the buses, you want to be on everywhere that people are visibly seeing, so that way they know where you are. So the way that I felt with social media is kind of the same thing. Like I want to post out there daily. I wanted
Mhm.
people seeing me. I wanted to be omnipresent, right? I wanted people to think Oklahoma, Rilee. So I posted a lot about Oklahoma. I have in my handle, I'm from Oklahoma. I make jokes about Oklahoma. I'm subconsciously Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So I want you to think Oklahoma, you think Rilee. So that's just kind of how I just sort of made sure that my posting was very like Oklahoma based. It's everywhere all over my page. It's in my posts. It's well known. That's where I'm from. That's where I practice. That's my community. Um, that was the way that I did that, was just kind of subliminal, subconscious, made sure I made it very aware that's where I was Oklahoma. So I'm just trying to be kind of that omnipresent Oklahoma guy, right? So
I liked what you were saying earlier about the micro goals to accomplish a greater goal, right? I guess if I accomplish these three things, then my ultimate goal is much easier for me to accomplish. Do you have anything currently that you're working on, or maybe something that you recently achieved that showed how those micro goals helped you?
Yeah. So, when you're building a new firm, right? And you've got you got people who all have these skills, these talents, and all these different things, right? What's really cool about it is that um, the if we build out a system and build out something that works right now,
Hmm.
right? I know it can work on scale, and I know it can work on deals. So if we have a pod or a team that works and that we can do, then we can replicate that. So like I guess my micro goals now are that in order to reach the goal of what we want our firm to become, we need to build out those systems, those processes, and those things where it works with one, but it works in a way that we know can be replicated. So
Hmm.
that's my micro goal right now is getting one pod that can work, and then our associate attorney making it where he can lead a second pod. And then eventually we can replicate that with associate attorneys working under those pods and be able to keep replicating. So I think that's my micro goal right now is coming up with systems and
Hmm.
teams and processes that work that I we feel comfortable can work in a scaled environment.
And I know this is very new for you it's only been a month old, you said, but is there, any sort of, like what's the plan for the firm moving forward?
Yeah, we want to be able to help as many people as possible, and help them in a way that as we grow, we never lose that same ability to give good customer service and good care and good empathy as we do when we're smaller and we have less on our plate, right? To build and scale in a way that we're always giving excellent service and putting the client first. So if we do that, I don't care if we become a firm of 10 attorneys or become a firm of 100 attorneys, I'll feel very blessed and confident in knowing that we have a group that um, with a group of us that's what everyone's committed to and that's what everyone's doing. So, but if we figure it out and we figure out that secret sauce and we know that we can keep doing that in an efficient way and a way that provides great service on scale, then we're going to keep going. That's what our plan is. So,
And I think I've read kind of this along the similar lines of what you're saying, some books about building a client-focused or client-centered firm. And it kind of sounds silly, right? Because like, of course, it's client-focused. You're in a profession where you need these clients to come in and to provide them this service. But I guess it does get lost for some firms where there's so much other stuff going on, right? Building the business, managing the employees, actually litigating the cases that sometimes you forget or I don't know, but that you really need to provide this customer service. And some people's theory is that the better customer service you provide, that will continue to generate more and more clients and snowball for you.
yeah, I agree completely with that. I think there's honestly, Will, I think there's three types of law firms out there, right? I think there's firm one, which is that traditional, gigantic system law firm that just runs cases through as quick as possible, very little litigation. I think that they provide good customer service, but what I don't think that some of those firms do well provide is maximize value on cases,
Mhm.
right? And make sure that people are getting what they deserve.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes it's more about the speed, but
Right.
the customer service is great. So people are happy with it because it's quick, it's through the system. Then you have the firms that have 25 to 40 cases. They're only taking on huge cases. Um, they're able to give great service for people. They're able to get that maximum value on every case they work on because they keep it small. They keep it they keep it very focused and they keep it where it's just they're chewing on just enough, right? They're not over chewing, they're not doing. Um, from a business standpoint, I don't love that as much just because I like cash flow. I like
Yeah.
some stuff coming in while
Mhm.
you're waiting on those big ones to hit. And if you miss, it can be catastrophic, right? So it's really not a client reason. It's just never been a model I've loved as much. Now there's some
Mm.
firms that do amazing with it, and they're absolutely incredible firms, and people are my friends. So no knock or shame at all. Like I mean, it freaking works. There's no doubt about it. It's just not what I love. Um, and then there's that middle model, which I think a lot of those top firms in the country are. I think that's what Morgan Morgan is. I think that's what Mike Morse is. I think that's what Paynish. I think that's what all those big players are. And and I think there's a few in your market as well, like Schulman, some of those guys, but they're litigating the crap out of cases, but they're doing it on scale,
Mhm.
right? They've got they've got 30, 40, 50, 60 attorneys or more, but they're still litigating at that same level. They're still taking cases to trial. They've just learned to scale a that that third firm or that second firm I talked about that only has 35, 40 cases. They've learned how to scale that where they can work on those huge cases, but also run that same volume that that firm one is doing, but do it in a way that they have enough people, enough staff, enough attorneys to still maximize volume, even on the smaller stuff as well, and build everything up. So that middle lane is what I think is the ideal firm personally, and that's what I'm trying to build with my partners and the awesome people that we have from the team here as well. Just some incredible people. I'm really blessed.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you the best with the new firm. Lots of exciting stuff happening. Before we log off, tell anybody who's listening to this, watching this, where they can find you.
Yeah, so Rilee Harrison, it's just RileeHarrison. I'm on obviously Twitter and X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I think I have a TikTok too, so you can reach out to me on any of those. I'll look at them. You can also email me at Riley at maplesinjurylaw.com. So that's MAPLES injurylaw.com. And again, Riley's RILEE.
Thanks, Riley. Have a good one.
All right, thanks.